You may hear some heavy breathing. This would be my bulldog Klinger down here who wants to join the interview. And I'm Callie, and I am the author of Permanent Vacation. And then my wonderful, actually she'll be interviewing me, so she probably should have started. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Di Kolka.
Yay! And Di, what do you do when you're not working at the salon or interviewing me?
I do a radio show every Friday from 4 to 6 on WLUW. I've been doing it since 2004.
Awesome, cool. Well, what we're gonna do, so I kind of measured things as best we could. And so we're gonna take off our masks for this interview. Luckily, as you can see, well, there's windows to the left and to the right. And so we've got some nice ventilation flowing. So we're gonna take a little, so we can breathe and talk. And we're gonna kind of face forward a little bit. So then we're not, totally looking at each other. Like, we're trying not to spit at each other.
We can see each other though.
Yeah, exactly. We've got this pull to separate us. Yeah, if you wanna, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you kind of
Okay,
throw
Kelly,
the questions.
what is your book Permanent Vacation about?
Our main character, Lucy, is really sick of life and needs a break. So she goes and visits her brother in Oahu. And so she really needs to just get out of the mainstream of life. She's living in Canada in a tiny town called Fossil Creek. So she is renting a liveaboard boat instead of a hotel room. And that basically means she gets to stay on a boat that's like a floating hotel room. So she can be on the ocean every day. It's kind of that 80s fantasy if you ever watch like Quincy, I think by
Duran Duran videos.
Oh yeah, there you go. So that's going to be her floating hotel room. So she gets to Hawaii, and her brother Neil says, I hate to do this to you, but my wife got this great chance to go to the Kwajalein Islands, the U.S. Marshall Islands. It's just for 3 days. And would you mind if I went? And she's like, no, go ahead. I'm going to be here 2 weeks, no problem. So he goes with his wife to the Kwajalein Islands, and unfortunately, while he's on a weed cruise, he gets kidnapped by drug smugglers, and that's where the party really starts. So then basically the story is how she's going to get her brother back.
So who is your target audience, Kelly?
Really, when I look at the target audience, it's really people who are going to enjoy, the same stuff that I enjoy. If you grew up on like Caddyshack and, Magnum PI, Hawaii Five-0, that kind of like that really fun comedy, but like good storytelling. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted this to be kind of, the target audience would be somebody who wants like a remedy from reality, but also people who are really into Hawaii and tiki and anything like, kitschy and Don Ho and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons I wrote it is I was going to write an insider's travel guide to Hawaii, because so many people will say, oh yeah, I'm going to Oahu, I'm looking more forward, and they'll say to Kauai or Maui or something like that. Well, I've been going for 14 years to Oahu since my brother in real life moved there. And I'm like, you really just need to know the island and where to go, and then you get the real cool stuff. And then over the years, I've talked to a lot of people from the islands, and they share their stories. It's funny though, if they know you're writing a book or an article or something, it's like suddenly tight-lipped. But other than that, people have just been really forthcoming, and I really fell in love with like the Hawaiian people. I think that was, it's just, I come from Chicago. I'm very hyper and spazzy and sometimes, foul-mouthed and whatever. But you go to Hawaii and like people are so nice and so laid back, and they don't have the same frame of mind. One thing I hear a lot is when you've lived there a while is they come back to the mainland for a visit or to visit family or something, and it's so loud here. And my brother, when he moved there, like I hadn't seen him in a while when he came back, and he was like, Jesus Christ, it's so loud there. And here in Chicago, and people just aren't as harsh. Like I was at a stoplight one time, and I saw, what is it, Dog the Bounty Hunter? He has like Takine bail bonds. I think he's retired now, but I don't know if he is or not. But anyway, so I see that place, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to take a picture. So I'm in traffic, but I'm at a red light, so I'm taking a picture. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Oh my God, I think I see him. And then I realized the light has been green for like a few minutes. Now in Chicago, everybody would have been like, like laying on their horn, cussing you out. There, everybody was just like waiting. And my favorite story about traffic in Hawaii is my dad, who was kind of a hot rod, believe it or not, when he was alive, was driving my brother's car, and he's like going really fast through the streets and stuff and driving like a maniac. And so he pulls up to a light, and this big, huge Samoan guy pulls up next to him and is like, "Hey, brother, slow down. The beach ain't going nowhere." And I'm like, I just love that because I can just see my dad. Oh yeah, mahalo, you know. So, so a target audience really for me is somebody like me who's really like I joke, I want to be the Harold Ramis of Hawaii because I love like that you could have a strong story. Like, you know, when I look at some of the comedy that I grew up with, it had strong stories to it.
Well, I want to ask you, since we're both music junkies,
Okay.
what music is in there? Is there music in your book?
Yeah, you know, I didn't start off as thinking I was going to put that in there, and then, you know, when you start writing a book, it sort of takes its own little path. And in the previous book, Permanent October, it's a lot. There's a lot of music stuff in there, and she's trying to kind of find herself and get her groove and stuff. And so in this book, you basically find out, I mean, this is another reason why she was going to visit Hawaii, is she's kind of licking her wounds a little bit. She had this really great contract. She thought she was going to like maybe do something with her music and maybe get recorded. And then the company shut down and everything kind of fizzled out. And so she's like made peace with that. Well, then she gets to, I don't want to give too much away, she gets to Hawaii, and suddenly her music career may not be fizzling out because she has an agent who gets a hold of her and says, "Hey, guess what? Someone wants to record your music who's very famous, and maybe you should do this." And she's actually okay with that. You know, it's like, because I'm a musician and I've gotten older, some of the on the road stuff does not appeal to me anymore. Maybe when I was in my 20s, but not anymore. A really cool thing in Hawaii, so this was really weird. In Chicago, I'm at Lori's Planet of Sounds. It's a terrible snowstorm. This is in real life. And I went into their dollar music bin, and so I'm just like shuffling around and whatever, and I find this guy Kapono, and I'm like, and he's Hawaiian, and it sounds like this could be a good album. I mean, I just read some little things about it and whatever, so I bring it home, and it's like Hawaiian yacht rock. It sounds like kind of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Sounds like your book.
Yeah, it's really, exactly. It's like, but the music was so good that I like started to seek out. I'm like, well, I wonder if there's other people like Kapono. So I found out Kapono's still alive and well and rocking out at Duke's. And it's like 6 degrees separation. I made a comment on Facebook about him. His brother saw it. And I said, "Hey, I'm coming to Hawaii. This is in real life." And so I go to see him at Duke's, and I was like, and he goes, "Hey, Chicago!" And I'm like, "Oh, how did he know? Oh my God, I'm so excited." Then I realized I've got a Chicago Alley t-shirt on, so I kind of gave it away. But it was so fun and stuff, and so I started to seek out this music. And if you want like a little taste, I always like, first of all, go on Spotify. I picked a bunch of songs out that would inspire you, like while you're reading this book, to have the atmospheric vibe. I did a permanent vacation Spotify. So I just thought that would be sort of fun.
Well, like people do in books where they put the recipe for something that had to do with the story.
Yeah.
You've got the music that had to do with your story.
And I just thought because it really sets a tone. You know, a lot of the Hawaiian stuff that I've read throughout the years, it's like a lot of horror, actually. Like when I go to try to find a Hawaii movie or something, the feel-good stuff, I don't know why, in the last 20 years, it's been more, except for Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler's kind of been making a lot of like Hawaiian movies. And not to put down Adam Sandler, I've watched all those movies, okay? You know, I love 50 First Dates and stuff like that. But I just thought, I want something with a little more substance to it. You know, and I really love action, adventure, and mystery. And that's why in this book I made sure that it's not just fluff. I mean, there's some scary scenes. Right. Exactly. And I wanted to, I know this may sound stupid, but like I want to have sharks. And then I put alligator in there, which you'll just have to go with me on this, because if you know anything about the islands, there's no alligators. But there's an alligator in my book, and he's trouble, and there's a reason. So.
Okay. Does this have anything to do with Permanent Vacation, the book?
I'm calling this the Escapist series, because what happened is I started off with Permanent October. That was my first book. And that's where you don't have to read that book to understand Permanent Vacation, but it would help. And they're going to all be standalone, this whole series. I want to do like 4 books. I've already done the outlines for them and everything, because I know for me personally, right now in 2020, it's trying times. Everybody's depressed and overwhelmed, and we've lost a lot of the magic and the joy, I think, we're lacking. And when I wrote this book, it was so much fun. And when I was doing kind of some of the meat of the writing, it was before COVID, and I went to Hawaii and I cloistered myself up in this like cute little cottage right on the beach. It's like another little hidden find that people pay millions of dollars, right, to like have these beachfront properties. Here I am in my little grass shack. When I first went to Oahu, I was not very impressed. In fact, I was shocked. I was like, wow, these houses are pretty, like they were nothing. I mean, they were just like little houses that looked kind of run down. Then it seemed like Honolulu was like cinder block city. I mean, it looked kind of like 1970s Miami Beach, but I just took a 9-hour flight, so there was a lot of layovers. That was a very long flight. In fact, I was like, well, that was a fine trip, but I can't say I'm ever going to like run back or anything. And then when my brother moved there, I'm like, well, I mean, I need to go visit my brother.
Yeah.
So he showed me a whole nother world. And Bobby is also very into pop culture. And so, like, there was Steven Spielberg did a TV show, The River, and they filmed it in Oahu. Then all these other movies, whether it's a Magnum, Fantasy Island, there was like a Charlie's Angels. So he would like point out all these things as we're driving around. And that's sort of what made it come alive for me and made me really love it. And then like he would take me to these restaurants. My brother's a big ham, my brother in real life, and my brother also in the book. My cousin Jennifer read this book, and she was like, so how much of this is true and how much? I'm like, no, Bobby did not get kidnapped by drug dealers. But, there's different things that went into the culmination of this book. My brother in real life was best friends with the head of homicide in Honolulu.
Oh.
And believe it or not, that used to be kind of a joke, because nobody wants to commit murder on the Hawaiian Islands because the islanders do not want to go to the mainland. So there's petty crime that goes on, like stealing cars, breaking into houses. But really murder, they are terrified because they really don't. Most of the people in Hawaii really want to stay in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And family is a big, big thing.
That is family in Hawaii.
And
they don't want to leave.
No. And once they're there, that's everything to them. I remember I met a guy on the beach one time and we were talking and he says, for you, you're going on vacation. Here, this is where we live. We don't need to go on vacation.
Right.
So they go to the parks. There's all these little parks along Kamehameha Highway. And you'll see on the weekends, like everybody pitches a tent, goes fishing. And it's, it's a beautiful thing. And it's really, like I said, it's a different, and I just wanted people to see most of the things that I've read about Hawaii have been, again, things I see on TV, but this is going to be a little embarrassing to say. But, when I used to watch Magnum P.I., it wasn't always for the Magnum, per se. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tom Selleck, Larry Eddie, I love all those guys, TC, Rick, all that stuff. But, what I really loved is that sense of camaraderie in the island, and ever so often, like, Tom Selleck would, like, narrate and talk about the island, and that's kind of, I just, me personally, I think if I need a break from life, that's what I want you to find in this book. But also, I used to like that there was this action-adventure side of, if you ever watch Magnum P.I., he was friends with Robin, in the Crow's Nest, and all that stuff, like Robin's Nest or whatever it was. So, I mean, I do bring some of that into the book. There's some references to that because okay, since my brother was living there and since we were obsessed with that, I was always obsessed with trying to get into the house. Like I really, in real life, wanted to get in there. So like we'd go to the beach. Waimanalo is the actual town where Magnum PI, where they shot a lot of that stuff. So we would go to the beach, and the beach is really in bad shape now. It's a lot of it is eroded, but you have to actually go to Waimanalo Beach, and then you have to walk over all these rocks to get to the tiny little inlet that is the TV show beach. And I'm not talking the TV show they do now, because that's CGI, and it's not, they don't film actual, like, I don't know where that is, but it surely isn't by the old Magnum place. So we tried to get in there, and I actually talked to one of the owners, I think the Robinsons. She actually, you could tell she was like, get the hell out. But I was like, hi, I'm a fan from the mainland. I know it's been 20 years. And she's like, I don't remember what I said, but she was actually really nice. And she said, you know, you'll just have to understand that I can't let you in. I'm like, that's okay. I'll be a peeping Tom outside. But it was really sad because it got really run down. And when I say run down, I mean they had those blue tarps like all over the house and stuff, but somebody was still living in it. So I did a lot of research, and just put it this way, if you like that pop culture 80s stuff, you're going to get it in this book.
Good.
And so I hope, again, I just want people, what I like is that you can take this book, everything that's bolded in the book is a real place that you can go.
That's cool.
So if you're like, let's say you only have a layover for a lot of people on cruises, they'll hit Oahu, and you only get like 24 hours.
Right.
So you can be like, okay, I want to go to Buzz's. That's like one of the few, what I would call super tiki experiences. But they have really good Reubens and good food and stuff like that. And that's
It's a little bit of a travel book.
Yeah. So you can take it there. Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
So.
Okay. And how, explain the Escapist series.
Oh, yeah, I
You
started.
to, yeah.
So there's going to be Permanent October, which is my first book that's been out for a few years now. And that is where basically you find out that Lucy inherits this amazing hunting lodge in a fictional town called Fossil Creek, Canada. Outside, I spent a lot of time in Canada, and I love Canada so much, and Montreal, you know, specifically. So this is my little like fantasy town.
Okay.
Again, escaping.
Okay.
So she ends up inheriting this beautiful winter retreat because her uncle thinks she's unhappy, and so he wills this to her in his will. But the caveat is she has to live there.
Oh,
so she moves. She's like, I don't want to move from Chicago to Fossil Creek. Well, she moves there, and her whole life changes. And she meets the love of her life, Amanda. She gets a horse. She finds out that there's family secrets that you'll have to read about. And there's some really good juicy stuff because, you know, I try to take from my own life. So that's Permanent.
So it sounds different from the second book.
Right, exactly. So yeah, and then you have Permanent Vacation, which is what I'm talking about now in Hawaii. Then Permanent Record. I can't wait for this one. So at the end of Permanent Vacation, there is a scene where her brother talks about getting a plane. So in the third book, her brother's got this puddle jumper plane, and he's going to do inter-island travel and delivery. So you can imagine, once you get to know Neil, our character, he's a little bit, that's her brother.
Your fake brother.
Yes, yeah, fake brother. So, nah, he's not. Anyway, like, you want to, like, enjoy a little bit of possible, like, realness, but you don't want everything to be real. Because then it's no fun.
Then
Fiction,
it's not an escapist
fiction
series.
is way
Then
better.
it's not Escapist series.
Right. So, her brother gets his plane, and of course he ends up, like, I'm not sure yet if I want to have him, like, what he's carting. I don't want it to make it too, like, he's carting a statue or something like that that's stolen. So he's going to get in trouble.
Well,
then
you're
he's gonna be
enticing
brought
us
in.
enough to want to get to
Right.
the third book. Okay.
Exactly. And then the fourth book will be where we bring the culmination of all the characters. So what's going to happen is our main character, Lucy, used to be in the restaurant business. And so through her connections, somebody
Like you.
said, right, there you go. You know, you write what you know. And so basically, through her connections and stuff, somebody is selling. They said, hey, aren't you into all these like tiki things and all this. So there's like a Don the Beachcomber kind of restaurant that's going under. And a madame used to own it, and she's very well connected in the mob. So, but she's got to sell because she's fallen on hard times. So Lucy and Amanda's very good with the bookkeeping and the money and all that stuff. So, and Neil is a great cook. So Neil, I don't want to give away too much, but Neil's going to be the chef. Amanda's going to be doing the bookkeeping. Lucy's going to be running the restaurant, and the mob's coming back to get what they came for. And you'll just have to read to find out the rest. And that'll be the kind of the last in the installment, I think, depending. I want to somehow possibly make it back to Chicago.
As you start writing the third one, the fourth one's going to write itself a bit. I'm sure.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's kind of what happened. I mean, Permanent October, I wasn't going to write Permanent. I mean, I didn't have any, like, whatever about Permanent Vacation. It started, truly, I just needed a vacation. I mean, I was in real life. I was opening the salon, which is my business in real life. And I was just overwhelmed. I couldn't take a vacation. It was a really harsh winter that winter. So I was just sort of like writing like these Hawaii reminiscence, kind of thing. And then I was thinking about Scooby-Doo. And if they went to the island and like da-da-da-da. And then I was watching what was it? I was watching a lot of Hawaii Five-0, the old ones, and some of the new ones, and Magnum, and what was that? Johnny Quest. And I thought, Johnny Quest, they always like the dad is this like badass island with all these gadgets and these like planes that do all this, amazing stuff and these special boats and it just sounded almost like a James Bond kind of thing. Yeah. So I throw some of that in this book. So, you get to enjoy all of that.
Yeah, okay. So how has your experience in the past with restaurants and things of that nature and your salon business now, how has that influenced your book writing?
Oh, that's a good question. It's been really, I think it takes a lot longer. Well, first of all, I always say, I think at least for me, it took a long time to become a decent writer. And even if you read Permanent October, it's good. It could be better. I wished I had a more, professional editor to really bang it out. So I did my best, and it's a fun read. But I'm hoping with, Permanent Vacation, it's even a better read. And I've come in contact with a lot more people who have been able to guide me and help me, actually through the hair salon. I literally was sitting there cutting this woman's hair, and due to COVID, I've already, it's gone through a couple edits, but I really wanted somebody who, that's their game, you know what I mean? That's what they do. And one of my clients edits she's like a Russian translator and a French translator, but she edits, their manuals and stuff, and I'm like, really? And then she offered to edit my book, and I was like, oh my God, Elizabeth, you're the greatest. So she actually just gave me my edits back yesterday. So, if you're watching this before the book is out, I don't know when we're even going to post this, but I just am like, what's funny? I have a podcast, I have a website and all this stuff, but I thought it would be nicer if people like to watch videos. So I just figured, that's why I thought, and you're so charismatic, and you're a DJ, and I just thought it would be more fun.
And I've interviewed a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
This is fun for me.
Yay!
Get to interview my boss.
All right, cool. Although, I never think of it to me, that's why I call it Curls and Company. That's the name of my salon. Not because it's a company, because when you have a theater, you call it the company.
The company, right.
And you need everybody to make the theater, to make the play come off, to make the musical happen. Everybody matters. If you don't have everybody, then it's a flop,
You gotta have the set designers.
Right.
You gotta have the front person taking the tickets.
Right.
You gotta have the people answering the phones.
Well, and that's why I don't like when people call it Curls and Co. Because I'm like, no, it's not a company like that. It's more a group of amazing people who come together to rock your world and your hair. So, but that is a very consuming thing that's made my writing much slower. Put it this way, if Callie could have a sabbatical, I could bang one of these books out a lot cleaner, a lot quicker for your reading pleasure.
But it wouldn't have your personality.
That's
because
true.
of your everyday life.
Well, and that's true. You know, when I was a kid, and I would read like Jack Kerouac or who was I thinking of the other day?
Charles Bukowski?
You know, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Believe me, I did go that train too. Ooh, yeah. So I don't drink anymore. So.
That'll stop you.
I'm like, yeah. I look at some pictures of him and I'm like, ooh, honey, you should have just dialed it back a little bit, you know. But he did what he wanted to do. But when I would read those stories when I was a kid, and I was like, God, I want to be a writer like that. And you realize if you want to be a writer like that, you have to live like that.
Yeah.
And that I don't think I put together at the ripe age of, 13 when I was trying to write like Judy Blume. And then I wanted to write like Truman Capote. You go through all those phases, and finally I was like, I just want to write like me.
Yeah, exactly.
But it took a while. It takes a little while to find, your voice.
Absolutely,
So.
absolutely. So we answered a couple of these questions, but we haven't gotten to the point with who are your favorite characters in the book?
Oh, that's the funny thing. I think because, like, Lucy is, loosely based. She's like the fantasy me, okay? So she's who I would like to be when I grow up, but I'm not quite there. But I mean, I love Jimmy J. Choi. Like when I was writing Jimmy J. Choi, so I have a friend of mine, hopefully he'll never watch this in case he doesn't like the character. But I was thinking of Ron, he's my sign guy, because he's so funny and he's so goofy and it's such a twisted view of the world. And I love it because I'm the same way. So when I was making this character, Jimmy J. Choi, I thought of Ron a lot because I wanted somebody who was like he's funny and he just gives you kind of a hard time, but at the same time, he's on your side and he's gonna back you up. He's gonna make you work for it.
Does he have heart of gold?
There, he does. He ends up a curmudgeonly heart of gold. Well, and the interesting thing is, when I did this book, believe it or not, I did a lot of research on Hawaiian culture, U.S. Marshall Islands, Kwajalein Islands, because that's part of when he goes on the weed cruise. It's when he's bored because his wife is in meetings all day, and he's like, and so he needs something to do. And this kid's like, hey, you want to do a cruise? And he's like, yeah. And so that's what gets him in trouble. But Jimmy J is a retired cop. And
Right.
so that's the one who she's running her boat from. And he supposedly is out of town, but then she finds out basically he's running his boat because he needs the cash and he's bartending inside the sailing club. So, he ends up coming to the rescue begrudgingly. But I found out some interesting things about, you'll have to read the historical perspective because I have him related to a very famous Hawaiian cop.
Aha.
So you'll just have to read it. And then Tuna
I haven't
is
heard you mention Tuna yet.
so Tuna is a really cool character. That's her buddy on the island. So when her brother's not there, she's not necessarily brokenhearted because she's got Tuna, who she came to visit too on the island. And in real life, I just sort of developed this. So it was a weird thing that happened when I was going back and forth to the islands. I went to Waimanalo Beach, Magnum PI Beach, and there's this little puppy running around, and I end up meeting this lady, and she was kind of bummed out. And I said, oh, you look like you're having a hard day. And she's like, oh, how can you have a hard day in Hawaii? But then she said that she had moved from San Francisco, she moved to Waimanalo, and she was really into yoga and all this stuff. And, at the time, this was again, about 14 years ago, Hawaii didn't have a lot of health food. It was Spam, it was, plate lunches and fried chicken and macaroni salad and, not light fare. And so she was like, God, I'm into blended smoothies and fresh fruit and da-da-da-da-da. And so she and I ended up talking, and she said she moved there for her boyfriend. But she said she really loved him and whatever. So the next year I come back to visit my brother again. I go to that beach, and I see a guy. But and it's the same dog. And I said, wow. I said, last year I was at this beach and I met this girl, and she had a similar dog to you. I said she was like a yoga instructor. He goes, that's my girlfriend. And I'm like, oh my God, what are the chances? So then he and I ended up talking. And in the book, they're bosom buddies and good friends. And Tuna has a great backstory. And he's kind of an amalgamation of many people that I've talked to when people go to an island to live for different reasons. Some they're trying to escape something, or they have a fantasy, or they want to get lost. There's also people there there was a lot of vets who like moved there and just really were not able to integrate back to normal mainland life. And so they just sort of got lost and live in the hills. So I've met all these people by just going down to the beach and talking to people. And so Tuna is kind of a lot of different people that I've met. But when I think of how he looks and his personality and stuff, I always think of the yoga instructor's boyfriend.
Okay.
And so, but I really take that to another level that's really fun. You know, I gotta have my fantasy, and this is a fiction. So I have a really cool, let's just say he's got his own like club going on. And you know, that's the other thing. There's a lot of bikers in the island, so I bring bikes into it because my partner in real life is into motorcycles. And there's like this whole little underbelly of Oahu that I didn't even know existed with the biker community. And then Neil. Okay, he's the brother character, and Neil is fun because he's the big galoot. He's the 6'8", charming, kind of shady. You know what I mean? And like you love him, but you're always like, what's he doing? Is he like on the legit, or do we have to worry? And so that I really love his character because I feel like I can do a lot with that. You know, because he's so fun. And then his wife, I didn't put Jenny in this list when I was writing stuff down, but I like Jenny too because, and again, this isn't like my brother in real life. I wanted a little like cool fantasy. I've met some really cool military people on the island, and I remember talking to this.
That's another part of Hawaii.
Oh yeah, it's a huge.
Yeah.
There's so much military. I met this amazing gal, and she had braids and stuff, and I was like, because I'm into curly hair and I do all different ethnicities of hair, you know, I asked her, I'm like, where'd you get your braids done? Those are amazing. And so she and I ended up talking, and she's like, it's not easy on the island to find somebody who does African American hair. And so she gets her braids done when she like goes back home. And so we were talking about that. So his wife, Neil's wife, is actually kind of, I just thought it would be a good pairing in the book, you know, when I thought of this lady. So, and she is a military person and is like cancer research. You kind of, again, don't necessarily know what she's doing.
Okay.
And I left that mystery in there because one of the reasons I brought the U.S. Marshall Islands in there is when I was a kid, my uncle in real life, my Uncle Bud, worked for the military, and he worked for NASA. And he was one of the people who built the first space shuttle. And he got to bring his family to the Kwajalein Islands. So they would come home at Christmas time and regale us, because Todd, Garris, all my cousins, Colleen, Tavis, they'd come home and tell us all these stories about living in the islands. And I mean, I thought some of it, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Oh, you're diving off shipwrecks. Oh, there's a shark sanctuary, you know. I kind of thought they made stuff up. Like there was one time she was talking about these tiger sharks and a hammerhead and all this stuff. Well, it comes to pass, they actually weren't full of shit. And I was like, oh my God. So, because it's really great with YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that'll change one day, but it really helped me with this book. I could see that the island, the Kwajalein Islands, was very similar. Not a lot had changed since they lived there in the 80s. So it was really kind of cool because it does look like the Brady Bunch founded it.
Yeah.
It's all very mid-century, low to the ground. You know, even the way the shrubs, and also I've talked to so many military people on the island, and my family, I have military people in my family, and I think there's this false sense of grandiosity that civilians have about, oh, if you rise in the ranks, they really treat you like gold. Not necessarily.
No.
You know, like my cousin Jason, who flew like in a Black Hawk helicopters and all kinds of stuff, like his office had like moldy shag carpeting and a runny air conditioner.
Oh,
It's like,
gosh.
this is one of the best offices on Tripler. You know what I mean? So it was like, and my cousin Jennifer was top of the class military doctor, but I mean, she worked these tremendously brutal hours, and she still shared, they had a really cool house, but it was really weird because it was like 3 houses jammed in right next to each other, like in this little cove. But I mean, you literally would be sitting at the dining room table and you could see into all the other. And I'm like, here's this like remote area, all this land. Why'd you
It's all
jam these
jammed in.
houses?
Yeah.
But they were all. It was kind of a. If you were lucky enough, you would get that house.
Yeah.
So she was there with 3 other people. But let me tell you, they worked for it. Because I saw her very little the first time I went to visit. I mean, she tried to, be a good host and would meet us for dinner, for breakfast. But I mean, the hours they put in are, staggering.
Well, Klinger keeps asking me to ask you if there are any animals in your book.
Are there any animals, Clingy Bingy? Actually, in permanent October, there is a bulldog named Comb Over. So, yes, there is. But in this one, we don't have a ton of animals. Just because on the island, it's hot. Like, he would not really do so well
No.
Although my brother tells me, my brother Bobby just moved to the Big Island, which is Hawaii.
There is a dog type. It's a type that's in Hawaii.
Yeah, they have. That's the thing. You'll see
It's a
some
specific
pit
dog.
bulls.
Yeah, but it's a specific dog that is in Hawaii only, I heard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if that's the one he's talking
And
about.
I think it is, but I forget the name of it.
Well, they have this new breed that they mixed like bulldogs, pit bulls, and something else together.
That's the
And
one.
they're really cute. My brother's next door
So you
neighbor
have to
has
have one
one.
in the third book.
Yeah, wouldn't you like that, Cligs? He's like, well, I would like to just go. I would like to go with you. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think they bred all these dogs together to make a dog that can handle
The heat.
the humidity and the heat
And I
the
think
terrain
this
and
dog's
everything.
really nice because it gets away a lot and ends up at my brother's house. And they have, oh God, he's got a funny name for they have like this big rope to hold the dog so my brother can take the dog back to the guy's house. Diesel. Surprise, his name is Diesel. And he's got a head like that big.
Yeah.
He's really cute. He's like you, but bigger. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So, website, blog, podcast, Spotify. You gonna get all that stuff ready?
Yeah. So, if you're interested to know more, as I keep like going out of frame here, this is lo-fi, baby, not hi-fi. No. So, yes, CallysWorld.com. So, CALLYS World WORLD.com is my website. And so what I'm going to be doing is posting like things like the podcast, video, Spotify, so you can go. I need to do a little link for the Spotify, but if you go on Spotify and you look for a permanent vacation under my name, Callie Redonzo, you will be able to find that podcast. I mean that Spotify, and then blog-wise. Like I started doing, somebody told me if you're going to start writing to get people excited and stuff, that I should do some like, you got a lot of backstory if you're watching this video, but what I did is like, here's one of the blogs that I'm going to put on there, blog posting, Mahalo, What a Long Strange Trip. And this is like the true stories of kind of what inspired this fictional, because I did like the research and getting to know people and talking to people. It just, there's a lot of stuff you can't put in the book because it just doesn't, the book's got to move, okay? I want it to be a page turner for you guys. So this stuff is the cool, like backstory stuff that hopefully people will find
A lot of
interesting.
people want to find it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and because I'm into music and stuff, like at some point, I want to do something a little more Chicago-centric, a little more music-centric. And I also love Maxwell Street, so
that would be
the
a fun
history. Yeah. So I want to kind of maybe interview the last vestiges of probably people who worked on Maxwell Street.
You could do like a 50s thing.
I know, I'm like trying
Like
to
a really
figure
great
out.
50s music. And
Oh, yeah.
You could definitely do the dark underbelly of Howard Street, Maxwell Street.
Well,
Howard
believe me,
Street's
Howard Street.
Howard Street, you could do one for
It's
Howard
got
Street too.
It's got an underbelly.
You could do one.
That's
for
what we
Howard
have.
Street.
My
There you go.
salon is on the street.
You
That's
can
kind
make
of
a book about Howard Street.
Oh, yeah.
And Maxwell Street.
Exactly.
You could do the street series.
Exactly. Oh yeah. There's so much. You know what's funny? During COVID, just driving around the city. I mean, I love the city more and more every day. Like I didn't know Bridgeport. I didn't. You know, with all the intensity that I looked at Hawaii and like, you know, studying it and getting to know it and meeting all these people. I never put that energy really into, I moved to Chicago, and I mean, I know the North Side, because that's where I've lived. So you can ask me a lot of that, but I didn't know Bridgeport very well. I didn't know Pilsen. I didn't know Humboldt Park. And now, because we've been driving around and checking everything out, it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think now your excitement for learning all that stuff about the place is probably going to go over to more places.
oh yeah, for sure.
So when you get this series done, you'll probably start a new series, and then you'll start another series.
Which I would love. That's one thing I never run out of.
No.
Like, it's funny, I thought I would be writing a lot more music for the band and stuff, and I just, during COVID, I didn't. I just couldn't, for some reason, it was just like that was really turned off in me. And I was able to, like, clean up the book and do my editing, but I wasn't really able to like, put a song together yet. I was able to put a bunch of song ideas in there, and not to keep bringing up Caddyshack, but it always cheers me up when I watch that movie. I don't know, I'm a sick person. And there's this scene with Bill Murray where he's like, he makes up some like grass that he's working on for the golf course, and he's like, it's manganese. I looked up manganese, and it's like, there's no freaking grass named manganese. It's like, but anyway, so I have a song called Manganese, If You Please.
That's a good title.
I'm like, oh God. But it's a song, basically, a lot of it's about Caddyshack. And I have another one that's about The Shining called Oh Johnny.
Ooh, that'd be good.
So, you know, because Halloween is here.
Yes.
Happy Halloween.
Well, Claire says this is wrapping up.
So, all right. That's it.
I think
Sorry.
we finished all the questions.
Cool.
And we look forward to definitely seeing the culmination and the distribution of the book.
Sure.